Hello and welcome to another episode of The Council. Little special edition for you where we are going to spoil Mulan. Well, we're going to talk about it. Two people are probably going to try and spoil it. But as part of
Yeah.
that, we also have brought in a little special guest. So we will start by introducing the special guest. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name's Sohail. I'm part of the council, a very coveted group. Um,
Yeah.
I'm from Glasgow, and I've been watching movies ever since I don't know, probably like when I was 5, probably, and I've become a cinephile ever since.
Well, welcome. We have another member here, Natalia
Hello, hello.
and Anthony. Antony, sorry. Oh,
Oh, hello. You're good.
good. And we have our fearless leader, Yousef.
Hello. I wouldn't say I'm the leader.
This was your
Okay.
idea. I think
Yeah.
I think you can give yourself
Okay.
You
that.
can claim that mantle.
So this is just a special edition of a spoiler talk on Mulan.
Mhm.
So who would like to start with their thoughts?
Okay, so I was looking forward to this movie before the pandemic, and I didn't mind the $30. Given the fact that I'm going to watch this with multiple members of my family, I think it's worth the price. So I just want to get that out of the way because I feel like a lot of people are going into this movie upset that it's a $30 price point. I didn't mind that. I thought it was, I thought it was appropriately priced because I really like this movie. I'm a big Disney fan. I wasn't the biggest Mulan fan, not that I didn't like the original, but I didn't have the same affinity for it that I did Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. So I went into it, um, kind of just being like, I'm excited to see the new Disney live action remake, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that Nikki Caro's direction for, this is the biggest thing she's ever done. And I think that she did a good job, as good of a job as like Jon Favreau did with The Jungle Book or with Iron Man, or like other filmmakers have done on their first outings in blockbuster cinema. I think that the cast was really strong and I think did a really good job of really all supporting each other. Like, I don't think besides Yifu Liu, which I think is how you say her name, apologies if I just butchered that. I think besides her, I think all the cast members supported each other and they didn't try to stick out. Like, I feel like that's been a problem with a lot of other live action remakes is everybody wants to be the star. And with this film, I feel like everybody was just trying to make a good movie and support each other, which I really liked. I thought the messages were really well done, especially with the arc that is done with Gong Li's character. The visuals I thought were very striking. The action was a lot of fun. I did notice that I think some of the editing was a little sloppy when it both some in the action sequences and also when it came to transitions. Going from scene to scene didn't feel as seamless as I think it should have been. And I also think there should have been a little bit more character development for every character. But yet again, I think that it did feel at points like it was adapting a more like Christopher Nolan in Dunkirk. We're not going to spend a lot of time characterizing the characters because this is a war. So in the end, I really liked it. It's definitely in my top 3 of the best Disney live action remakes. And I'm excited to watch it again. Also, I didn't, as much as I love the songs, I think that Christina Aguilera's covers over the end credits was enough for me. I thought the film's tone was throughout was very good. I enjoyed the movie that they made, and I'm glad they made changes. I'm glad that we have 2 versions of Mulan, and for people who, let's say, don't like musicals, which is not me, but they have this version, and you have 2 versions of Mulan that both tell a really empowering story. And so, yeah, I really liked it.
I have to agree with you. I was totally into it. I didn't really like the original animation. I just found it a bit meh, especially compared to the other animations. So going into this, I only bought it so that my goddaughter could watch it because we used the same Disney Plus. So For me, that is the only reason I got it, and I'm so happy I got it because I ended up really, really enjoying it. I think it was totally worth the price that was on offer. 20 quid for me in the UK, worth it. Like, no issues. I've spent more and I've gotten less, so I don't see the issue with it. I do get some of the cuts in the scenes and things like that. Yeah, they were a bit jarring, but obviously it was Nicky Carroll's first big film, shall we say, so you can forgive them small things. I don't see where everyone's getting all these major issues from. Like, so what? She was over at one side of the battlefield. She then went to the other side of the battlefield. You don't need to watch her going from point A to point B. You've seen her go, I need to do something to stop this. You've seen her collecting the helmets, and then you see that she's set something up on the other side. That's enough. You've got imaginations. Use it. You don't need to be shown her skirting around the battlefield. Like, that's enough. But I would say that, yeah, the cut's basically my only issue, apart from the acting of Jet Li. So wooden. So wooden. I know
But
people
he
are
was
obviously
dubbed.
that, right. He was clearly dubbed for a reason. If his acting is
Yeah.
that wooden, how wooden was his voice? You can see when he is sitting there talking, you can see he is putting zero effort in, none. So they've probably already paid him. They're not going to reshoot and recast him because then it just looks bad. Dub him. Fine. Like, I don't see the issue. I don't find the issue in it. He was clearly not doing a very good job. So they had to do something, and that was their decision. I'm fine with it. Don't get the problem. But for me, they were my only two complaints. I loved everything else about it, especially the witch. Perfect. That storyline, it's lovely.
I have to agree with the witch. I mean, I didn't know I would feel for her at the end. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna do spoilers, but I just thought,
Go
Spoiler away.
ahead.
yeah.
It's a spoiler review.
Well, let me start with how I thought it looked, because when I watch a movie, I want to see a spectacle, right? Especially if it's a live action from an animated short or movie, in this case Mulan, which I disagree, Liam. I enjoyed that one as fuck. That I watched multiple times over my childhood. I thought it worked well. The songs were fantastic. Ming Na Wen was great, and this one, it was visually stunning to me. Like, they could have done something with the houses, like as a set, but I was like, okay, they all live in the village. That's to symbolize that, okay, they're a village, they're a cohort, you know. But I would like it to see more of the openness, more of the land. But that was something they had to um, agree or disagree on, which I'm fine with. The action sequences really bought the movie for me. That when they're at the avalanche scene, and before that, they're throwing arrows to their enemies, and when the first group of people start moving, retreating rather, I thought it was so clever of them to do like a somersault and just shoot backwards. I thought that was great. That was I haven't seen that in a long time. I thought the wire work, I think that wasn't a distraction. That was actually a big plus for me. So um, I was very happy with that. Now on when it comes to like why there's no comedy in this, where's Mushu, where's etc. I was like, they're going into the folklore and the legends, and I was okay with that when production was happening, when they said no one, she's not going to have a love interest, which we'll get to in a second. You know, no talking dragons, no, insects, or whatever. I was like, okay, it's a different movie. They're going into what the Chinese people would think is appropriate. So I was like, okay. So I was content with there not being any comedy. With there was something wrong with how they portrayed the Falcon women. I think it was Qian Lang. They kept saying, she was ousted from her clan or tribe or whatever it was called. And I wish I had like a little bit more background from her to really relate to her to, sell it home.
Yeah,
But I was content with it.
I wish we got a chance to like maybe see a sequence
Yes.
of
Yeah.
her. Maybe they set it up at like the beginning. Like I didn't need, because I had a problem with the fact that they introduced the villain and then we don't see the villain for like an hour, and then we catch up with them later. Like if maybe the opening sequence was like this young girl using these powers, and maybe we think it's Mulan, but really it's Gong Li's character. Like that could have been something interesting and put a connection between them. That is some, again, back to the characterizations.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done.
Why didn't you direct this movie?
Why? Because high school education is very important. So I guess that's why. Anyway, continue, Sohail.
Moving on to the relationships, if I may. I thought Chen and Milan, that was a surprise because when production was happening, they said no love affair, no love interest, or that's what I got at least. And I was quite surprised that they would throw that in. Maybe that was, I don't know, a later decision where they're like, no one's going to like it if there's no love, no Disney-ness. So I think that was a late decision, and that's where I have to say, when in the animated movie, there was a lot of tension between the guys and Milan. She didn't fit in per se, and I thought here they could have actually shown more tension between her and Chen, because they were having banter, and I understand like they all have to be a brotherhood, for example, when they're going at war. But when they were like talking about who you're going to marry and who's like, what's your ideal woman, for example, that was banter, and I was like, okay, that's great. But Chen then went into the tent and said, don't worry about them, they're just making fun of you and all that. And I was like, okay, maybe he's warming up to her. But then at the lake, he said, we got off on the wrong foot. And that stuck with me because that was a big problem for the storyline, because they only had like a little mini sword fight. And I was like, I don't see where that is like over the line, for example. So I thought that was a big problem for me. It didn't like overshadow the movie, but at the end I was thinking about it. So
Question though,
yes.
was remind me, because it's I saw the movie yesterday, but still, was the lake scene?
Yes, it's very forgettable. We know.
Was the
Head
lake-
down,
Come
you. It's
on.
not your turn.
was the lake scene after the fight that she had when she did use her chi, or was that scene after? Because I feel like if they had, because they set it up when they were waiting online when they first met, and they also did the other scene, then I think there was enough there for the lake scene.
It was
It was
after
after.
yeah,
It was after the second fight. Yeah.
That's why he complimented who was it, Jong? I think that's Milan's fake name.
Yeah, I think she took her
Hua
father's.
Zhou. Hua
Hua
Zhou.
Zhong.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hua Zhong.
Mhm.
But on the Emperor's point, I didn't notice any dubbing. Maybe I was eating, so I couldn't really hear it. So, I love eating when anyway. So I was like, okay. But in this one, compared to the animated one, you have to agree, he wasn't a wimp. He at least fought. He's like, okay, I'm gonna take my battalion, I'm gonna have my armor on, let's fight, And he did some good sequences, but I mean, at the end, he just standing there like, Milan fight. fight Mulan. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So he wasn't a wimp compared to the Emperor, who's like just standing there in his robe, and it's like, could you at least show that how you got this job, sir? So that's what I like. Overall, I'll conclude. It made for a really good movie for me. I mean, I understand the problems, and we'll get into them. Don't worry. But overall, it was enjoyable. I yield my time, as they say.
I feel like Yousef is just like, looks like he's preparing for battle. Like every good word Sohail was given, Yousef's just get.
Yeah.
Yousef is like,
Well,
like get a massage, like his all tensing up and like clenching every good word we say.
okay.
And just to keep him going, Natalia, should you go next?
Okay. I just want to say I didn't hate this movie, okay? I'm not like, I thought it was fine. So let me share some of the good parts first. I liked the cast. I think the cast was very good. Gong Li was great. Yifu Liu was great. Donnie Yen. Everybody was good apart from Jet Li. But even Jet Li, he didn't want to do this movie. He declined, and then his daughter was like, "It's Disney. You have to do it." And he was like, "Okay, fine." So I think his heart wasn't in it in the first place, and they just wanted Jet Li.
That explains so much.
Yeah. I thought the cinematography was beautiful at parts. I did have a big problem with how they shot some sequences, which I'll get to. But I thought it was okay. My problem with the film is how small it is in scale. If they would have said, this is a kind of like One and Only Ivan, Pete's Dragon, Christopher Robin type film, I think our reactions would be completely different. But the fact that they gave this movie $200 million and it was like, this is going to be like Beauty and the Beast. This is going to be like Aladdin. It's going to be like The Lion King. It's going to be huge. And then it's not. It's just really disappointing. So I thought the movie was mediocre. I thought it was rushed. It has a very like made by committee type feel. You don't feel like this was it. As I said, it feels like those IMAX previews that they used to do. I don't know if you guys ever went to any of them, but I remember for like Doctor Strange, they had a thing where you went there and they showed you like 30 minutes of the movie and they gave you a poster and told you to leave. So it feels very much like that.
What kind of rich people shit is that? Oh my god.
It was
like they would show like the first.
I don't pay for
like,
IMAX. I'm
like,
cheap.
Like in front of Guardians 2, they showed like a 7-minute trailer for Pirates of the Caribbean that like they would do that kind of stuff.
It was a thing for press, and then they invited fans to kind of like make the press be like, yeah, Doctor Strange, woohoo. They also did it for Ghost in the Shell. That was fun. Anyway, back to this movie. It feels very much like that. It doesn't feel, and by the way, I just want to point out, I'm fine with them taking out the music. I'm fine with taking out Mushu. I'm fine with the $35 for me price point. That's what Warner Brothers charged for Scoob here. So all that I think is fine. I think it's fair. The problem is they didn't go too much in the other direction. All of the other Disney live action movies have added something. This one doesn't. It just takes away a lot and gives you nothing in return.
What about the
Yeah, but even that, like you said, they didn't do anything with that. You meet the villains, they disappear, and then they come back at the very end. Liam last week when we were talking about New Mutants said, oh, that's not a good idea because they didn't do it. And then here they didn't do it either. Like you can't say that this whole character development which is non-existent for the witch is great when they don't do anything. You should show her backstory instead of just tell it.
Yeah,
I was okay
agree.
with being just told.
But you're
You
not
had-
okay with it.
you had
And
for
you
me-
The hypocrisy.
Well, no, because
Yeah.
The hypocrisy.
there was a difference. In this, they used Mulan's backstory so that you could
But I don't need to
What's
see
the word?
Mulan chase a
Like-
chicken.
let the lass chase a chicken if she wants to chase a chicken. We don't judge you for showing up in your Dumbo shirt.
Wait, I actually like that.
Listen.
Like that.
This movie, I think they said in March that a sequel was being made. It feels very much like a sequel is like designed in the movie's structure. So
Yeah.
It feels almost like Solo did, where people were expecting this movie to be bigger, but because they wrote the first movie with the intention of furthering the story, then it feels smaller than we expect it to be. So I do think that like if Gong Li comes back in this, like if they make a Mulan 2 and she comes back,
She's
and
dead.
yeah, well, so was Loki. They bring back the best parts of movies that are not.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I feel like maybe if we got more of her in the second one, then I would forgive. It's like how at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, when Red Skull just disappears, the fact that then he appeared in Avengers: Infinity War made me forgive that they just kind of got rid of him at the end of that movie.
Yeah,
so
but when you're making a movie, you
Yeah.
shouldn't be focused on your sequel. You should be focused on your movie. And I
Right.
understand Disney does that all the time. That's fine. But when you're charging $30, when you're charging people $30 and you're advertising it as this huge movie and then it's not, people are going to be disappointed. I think also the script was fine. The script was really, really good. I liked the lines that they had. I wrote a couple of I didn't write all like exactly what they wrote, but I liked the line that the villain said about, if you don't want gold, I'll give you blood. I thought that was a good line. I liked their emphasis on true, how she didn't say that during the chant and then she looked at the sword and she was I thought that was cool. The script was really good. I think with a different director this would have been really good because it does feel very choppy in its editing. It does feel like it's just a sizzle reel for a potential sequel that they're pitching to Disney. I think also, so we touched on the editing being crappy. I also felt like the cinematography, although beautiful at points, they did have shots, particularly in the action sequences, where like the sides would be blurred. And when the sides were blurred, and they did that so much, and they also, because the editing was so choppy and it just immediately goes into the action sequence with no build up, no setup, no nothing. For me, the first couple of times I was like, is she dreaming this? Is this what she wants to happen? But then as it went on, it's like, no, she actually did this. And I'm like, where was the setup to this? So yeah, I'll start with that. I'll let Natalia talk. Oh yeah, that's the other thing.
No, I want to talk about that. No, shut up. I want my time.
Okay.
Give me time.
Okay.
Rip headphone users.
Yes. One more thing also. I understand that it's really hard to depict a woman as a man and that it would have been hard anyways, but Nikki Caro does absolutely nothing. Not only did she get rid of the transformation scene, but she's a woman. I could see that. Like there were so many interesting ways to shoot it, to portray it, that she didn't do. She just put her hair up in a bun and said, that's it. I'm a man now. Woo! Like
I
did nothing.
I agree, but I do think, and I was talking this with my family who kind of watched it with me. A lot of times our mind, because we're not like thinking, like all the men in that army, we're not thinking a woman would ever be there. So they're kind of putting it in their head like, oh, it's a man. And I think, also I think because of the culture at the time, the fact that like that her male group, like that group of people, like they were having conversations, like they never probably had those conversations with a woman before, and the fact that they could maybe added to the fact that they thought that she was a man because they never had these conversations with a woman before, so they could never even think. So I think there were things there, they could have maybe hit them a little bit more.
Yes.
But I agree.
Again,
there was some visual cues though.
Yeah.
So if you noticed, no woman had them buns.
Yeah.
They made sure only men had that, and all the women either had ornate hair or they had two. So there was visual cues. She went from having two or ornate hair, like every other woman in the film, to having the male hairdo.
Yeah, but she could have
There was
done
some
more.
other feminine-looking men in that cast. So you're only, for me, yes, I know she's a woman. It's an actress. It's obviously a woman. Without special effects, you're not going to be able to make a face masculine, which in that time of, in that era, was never going to be a thing. So it's, for me, perfectly believable that she passed as a man, because in that time frame, in that time period, she changed her hair to how the men wore their hair, and then went to a male-only place that a woman would never dare to go to. That makes sense. I don't need it explaining to us either.
You are correct, yeah. Because we have to think about the time period and so we have to take that into account and not like how we interact with our own selves and wherever we are, So I think that was an important point. But I didn't see her as manly, but I thought she was manly enough as a teenager, for example, not like
Yeah.
her love interest, for example. Yeah. So I thought she was passable, and I thought because they're at a war, they wouldn't be thinking about it. But as an audience, it's understandable that you'd be like, she looks still like a woman, but I thought maybe that's a creative choice.
Can I talk now?
Go on, dear.
All right. Okay. Hi. I did not like this film. The editing. Oof. One of the first things that I realized when I watched it, and I also did get like little baby spoilers from watching Chris Stuckman's review on it, where he mentions that she has like chi, and he talked about this in his review where she has these like magical heightened abilities, and that takes away from the first film where it was her own pushing her own physical boundaries, and that was something that I felt was really important in the first film, whereas with this it was just she's got some magical powers and she's kind of agile and like that's it. It felt like it wasn't like her, I guess. What am I trying to say? There was a lot less of a physicality for her to overcome because she already had this ingrained like magic ability thing. And I felt like that was like really weak, because how are you going to present the original film with all of its amazing physical prowess and then do it again live action where you're just going to annex that and be like, nope, magical powers, chi, tantang. Like, what?
But they
Excuse
weren't
me?
saying the chi was magic. They were
I
saying
know
the chi
that.
is something everyone has.
No, I get
Women
that.
can't harness it because their way of bringing honor in the culture is through marriage. It's not through war. So chi isn't magic. Chi is just your inner ability to focus, to
So
harness
the
things in your
force.
life.
It's
and
the
things like that.
force.
Yeah.
She is the force.
Jeez,
Well,
what?
the force, like it's meditation. It's just another version of
Ancient DNA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's still a cop out
It's
because you
still
have
such a
this other
cop
witch
out.
character, and like her
Yeah,
father,
the other
Mulan's father
character's
says,
magic.
yeah, but Mulan's father says, "Oh, you can't be doing this, or else we're gonna think you're a witch." And then at the end of the movie, they basically made her a witch.
Yeah, but I think
They're like, you have all these
That I
magic, but you
can
can flip
understand. I
and
can
twirl a
understand.
sword. Like, that's not what Mulan is. Mulan's supposed to be empowering because she defied everybody and trained and did it herself, not because of some magic or witch powers.
I also want to talk about the fact that there was very little transformation. In traditional Asian cultures, the cutting of the hair is very symbolic. And in the first movie, that was great because, disguise, but also just because she's shedding a part of her old life and going into a new one. This, she just put on a freaking bun and didn't do a chippy chop. She needed to do a chippy chop. And also just because when she finally put her hair down for the mountain fight, I was watching that and I was like, bitch, your hair is everywhere. Your hair is going to be in your face. How can you see everything? Where's your peripheral vision?
You can't in real life chop your hair with a sword.
No, I understand. But they had
And you
scissors, no
can't
doubt.
and you can't in real life transform from a woman to a bird.
I know, but still, like, if you're going to chop your hair with a sword, it's going to be like that. Like, it's not going to be
So
appealing.
what?
Look,
They
Okay,
had
there's
let's get off
scissors.
realism, there's
topic.
They had
realism,
scissors.
and there's like
Okay.
fantasy. There's a difference.
Okay, Natalia, any other
Hi.
complaints before we open it up for discussion?
Then like the editing, it was very pretty to look at. I really love the colors. I I don't know. I don't want to get political, but I don't love
Just do it.
imperialism. I don't love imperialism. I really don't. The fact that we have the dark-skinned Mongolians coming in, the Huns going into, for freedom, to not be under the imperialist rule, and then you could just give the people what they want. Woo! Okay, that's
Was
it.
that even
Rip
mentioned
headphone
in the
users.
movie?
It was a
What?
lot of
That
propaganda.
they were coming in to
Very.
invade
No,
just
not-
for that reason, that they were
Yeah.
oppressed.
They said that they don't want to be a part of the imperial rule because they took over their land and the emperor killed his father. And then the emperor was like, oh shit, gotta
I
kill
see,
this guy
okay,
too.
yep.
So, yeah,
Just-
that was not.
Remind me, is the animation better when it comes to the imperialistic themes?
Yes and no.
I think it's exactly
There
the
was
same.
one line in the film where Mulan, it's the final confrontation, right before Fulanito is gonna try and kill the emperor, and Mulan busts through the door, and he's like, "Who the hell are you?" And then she lifts her hair up, and he goes, "The warrior from the mountain." And I love that line because the Mongolians traditionally had no sex discrimination when it came to becoming a warrior, a fighter. So for him, he was like, "Oh, sweet, this lady beat my whole ass army." So it was easier for him to understand as to how she was able to, punchy punch and all that jazz. But for the film, for this 20, yes, we're in 2020. For this 2020
Now and
film,
forever, we will be in 2020.
stop it. For this 2020 film, they didn't show that kind of the lack of sex discrimination by sex. And that was something that I didn't really love, predominantly because they pushed it so hard in terms of the imperialism, in terms of that view, that we didn't get to see the other side. In terms of the other side that we did get to see, it was just very vilified. And I was like, I don't love this, considering that you try and make it sympathetic towards Gong Li, but you don't try and do that with the Mongolians. It felt half.
Mhm.
It felt really half.
Didn't we go to a scene though that the army was walking through and there were like bodies piled on top of people that evil guy killed? Like, I don't know, like if we're gonna redeem him by the end of the movie.
I don't want him to be redeemed so completely, but I do I wanted us to get a little bit more of a history lesson.
Yes. I just want to say also, Liam said that, oh, it's the same in the animated movie. That's fine. The first animated Aladdin, really, not really racist, but kind of racist. This one, the original Mulan as well. What you do here is, because we are in 2020 or 2019 or whenever these movies came out, you can change that. That's the point of remaking them, to make them more appropriate. And I think that's a little bit hard to do when both your writers or all four of your writers are white, when your director is white, when your costume designer is white, when your editor, I'm pretty sure, is white. So you don't get that authenticity. The first one was missing that. That's why I think people wanted this remake. Same thing with Aladdin. The reason people wanted the remake was because it was a bunch of white people doing the voice on the first one.
Well, no, because
The original Aladdin
No,
was...
yeah.
original Aladdin.
Yeah.
I was going to say the original Mulan wasn't.
I mean, you had Ming-Na Wen, but wasn't the rest of the voice cast for the most part was...
Donny Osmond is Li Shang. No,
yeah.
There was still Asian representation.
I will...
Okay, but again, the point is you add more. Sorry.
To Yousef's point, I do think, yes, I agree that we want to see these remakes represent the creative team of the culture that it's kind of based on.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, that these movies were in production pre-Black Panther, and I think post-Black Panther, and seeing the effect that creative team had.
It doesn't freaking matter.
It's just
think
common
it
sense.
does, because I think that movie made such an impact because it was people telling the story that they personally had an attachment to, and it made history. And I think that you will see, now, post that movie, when they make their next live action remake, when they make more blockbusters, that they will reflect more of the culture in the future. If that doesn't happen,
I feel like that's going to be a
I see
lot.
what you did there.
I think that's going to be a lot harder to do if they're going to do another live action remake, because as of right now, they've already done the POC that they can.
Yeah.
Because the next
no
ones are
one's
just
gonna
going to be
make
white.
Pocahontas.
No one's going to
but-
make
No, no.
Pocahontas.
But,
But
like,
they're
doing
changing the Little Mermaid. They're putting that in
Yeah.
the.
But even then, you
Obviously,
have
that
Rob
take-
Marshall directing, and you have he made the rest of his family like every single race, so Haley Bailey stands out. Like, you're not supporting your casting decisions here.
I think the judgment on this will be if they make a Mulan 2, what changes? Who is the screenwriter? Who is doing
Asians
the
behind the Asians
I don't.
behind the scenes.
I just want to say, because I still have an issue with what you have said about obviously the way they portrayed the villains with a 2020 sensibility. What do you want them to do in changing that? Because
That's not my job to figure out.
But they didn't. Well, how would you? Well, no, I'm not asking what you want. How would it make you happy? Changing it. So the original tale is obviously it's this woman and it's against the Mongolian army.
Mhm.
They've changed it as in they don't mention specific regions. They don't mention that it's Mongolian anymore. They just say northern invaders.
It's still obviously Mongolian, and also
Yeah, but
just
they
because
don't
Sea
say
Silk
it.
Road here.
I know.
Yeah.
I get what
Liam's
you're
right.
saying.
They don't say it.
That is the tale. That is the story. That is the legend. So removing that completely doesn't change anything. It just means we forget what happened in the past. Why should we forget what happened in the past just to appease now?
It's the
Can I say-
okay.
You can't just take it always as this is racist. It's
Yeah.
not always racist. Sometimes it is just that's how the past seen it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we shouldn't.
I get
we shouldn't
that.
change history when it comes to cinema. I think that's a very important point, because if we start saying that, the Northerners or the invaders were, for example, let's say Americans, right? That wouldn't make sense. Or like we have to keep changing races every century or every,
Yeah.
what the audience think. I think because then we change history, then someone's going to say, why didn't they tell us? Why didn't they portray it right at the first time?
But
I will say though that
Colonialism.
this isn't The Greatest Showman, or it's not Braveheart. This is Mulan.
yes,
I don't
thank you.
like.
This is not based on a
imagine
true
totally-
story. If this was based on a true story film, I understand that. But this is a fantasy. It's the same thing like Hamilton did, right? You make
agree.
it modern for now. This is not a history lesson. It's not. It shouldn't be about race. And I'm not Asian.
You're
so I
making
can't
it about
speak.
race.
I'm not making it about race.
I made
I'm
it
not
about
Asian.
race.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I like, for example, with Aladdin, I have problems with the cultural aspects of that film that only like me, Natalia, and Sohail kind of can speak on, right? Because that's just our culture. So I'm not Asian, but seeing the response from Asian people online who have these problems, it's the same thing with the African American community when a lot of actors like Chadwick Boseman refuse to take roles in slave movies or movies like that because they want to focus on the future. That's what was so great about Black Panther, is it focused on the future and where we're going instead of the oppression of the past.
And
That's
it wasn't
the point of these
perpetuating
films.
stereotypes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say, like, as someone who's South Asian, obviously I'm not
Mhm.
East Asian, I can understand that, when I saw videos of when the live action was announced and they went to China, they went to Shanghai, and these presenters were asking questions like, do you know of the myth or the legend or whatever? They said yes. The older people didn't, for some reason. Well, that was only a small pool, but I'm guessing they would have heard of it when they were young. And they said, we didn't like the dragon, how they portrayed that.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, that's why they deleted or took out the comedic aspect.
Mhm.
Then they were like, we wanted to see Mulan as herself, but they also, on the point of, casting a better actress to look like a man, they looked at Liu Yufei, and they said, well, she's obviously feminine. So they have, what I'm trying to say is they wanted it to be more traditional than what Disney said, because they were looking at it and said, who's making it? It's Disney. It's not going to be real. It's going to be true. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes,
I
but-
understand that sorry, I
go
agree
ahead.
with you, Yusuf, that you said that it was a legend. It's not actually a true story. And I agree with that. Antony was like, it's not Braveheart. And, you know, oh goodness, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But so I think that's okay. Yeah, we can change it up because it's a legend. You know, it's not true. But that's
Yeah.
all I wanted to say to clear up.
Yes. Again, I'm fine with them taking out Mushu and taking out the songs. I didn't miss them. What I was missing was the big action sequences that I was promised. I've seen a lot of Asian and particularly Chinese movies over the past couple months, just because a lot of them have been coming to my theater. And for example, the 800, which we reviewed last week, that was a big movie and that had a lot of action and that made so much money in China. So I don't understand. Disney's trying to have it both ways with this film, where they're like, we're going to do all this to appease China, but at the same time, it's still going to be pretty much the exact same movie as the original one in tone, except it's missing all the stuff. So you're like, is it a comedy? Is it an action? Like, is it a war epic? What is it? You don't there's nothing there.
It felt similar to me with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. That's the one where Tom Cruise is climbing the building in Abu Dhabi, where the second, like the big action sequence in the middle is the best thing.
Right.
And so then the third act is kind of smaller than that, which is interesting because usually you try to build up. I think maybe it was because it was coupled with the fact that she finally was like fighting as Mulan, or maybe, that was the biggest action sequence in the movie. But I definitely think that they needed to reorganize the stuff, because that action sequence, that size, should have been at the end of the movie. And I think it would have.
But what action sequence? None of them were memorable to me. All of them were 2 minutes and they were just, let's get a couple shots of people fighting and then
Mulan. The avalanche. The one that ends with the avalanche.
But that wasn't even that big. That could have been so much bigger. When you have a $200 million budget, that should have been like, oh my God. And the fact that I was able to watch this on my laptop and not have a problem with it, me, the one who wants to watch everything in a movie theater, was like, this is better on the small screen than it is on the big screen. I didn't miss the big screen for this because there was nothing to like really.
I did. At one point in the movie, it did feel, The Mandalorian did come to mind, like this really impressive technical thing that was done smaller, but yet the fact that it was a $200 million budget, you're like, where was Jet Li? Did he ask for 100 million? Like, what's going on here?
Like, was that whole city at the end though? That was obviously all CGI, yeah.
Which was,
maybe.
I think so.
So
They used that for like 1 second.
Yeah.
Why was that? That was awful. They should have used it more. I think
It
that
should have been
that was the animated.
Longer. Like if it was 2:05 instead of an hour and 55, I don't think I would have minded. Soften up those transitions,
a little,
yeah. Like
I wouldn't have needed more character development, but I do think the ending.
We got no character development.
I think it needed to be. We did.
No, we didn't. Everything we
got more than we got in Aladdin.
No.
The smallest violin plays in the background.
The
only character development you know about Mulan comes from the original. You take what you know from the original about this story and you apply it kind of.
I didn't apply any because I didn't like it.
Like,
I disagree, Yousef.
I don't think there's one live action remake that stands alone. Like even Mulan, which I think is the furthest from its animated predecessor, is still like, if you like Mulan.
But you can watch Beauty and the Beast, you can watch Aladdin, you can watch The Jungle Book, you can watch Cinderella, you can watch Christopher Robin, you can watch Mary Poppins Returns and not have to see the first one to fully understand what is happening.
This is one where you actually have to do homework and go.
You don't have to do homework.
Yes,
you have to go into the vault.
You don't have to go into the vault. You don't. I haven't seen Mulan in years. I can't remember it fully because I didn't like it. So as I said at the beginning, I only went into this because Evie wanted to watch it, who is my goddaughter, and I said I would pay for it because I share their Disney Plus. and we made a night of it. She came over to my house because their house is getting renovated, and I put it on for her, and we had a nice time. I only did it for her, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I didn't remember the animation that well. I remember little bits of the songs. I remember snippets, small bits. I have no backstory to bring into this, and I didn't need it. I was fully invested in the story that they were telling. The small interactions that we got between Mulan and the witch gave me enough backstory, because I understood where they were coming from. I understood it, and that's all I needed from it. I completely disagree.
Natalia,
Okay,
I have a
that's
question for you, because you seem to be the biggest Mulan 98 fan of all five of us. How were you with the changes? Or were you fine not having the music? What's your stance on the changes?
Oh God. Okay. I understand why there wasn't any music, and I'm kind of okay with the fact that there wasn't any music, mostly just because of it's supposedly going to be a great war epic with action scenes. Cutting into music would have been very jarring and would have taken me out of it. I understand the changes that they've made. I get why they didn't do the music. I get why they didn't have the comedic sidekicks. And I'm totally okay with that.
You just prefer the original.
Yes, I just prefer it. I prefer I don't know. I just feel like the way that things were set up in the first one was just done a lot better. I like the fact that the final action scene in the Emperor's palace was done at night, so then it would be easier for the Mongolians to sneak in. Oh no. However, I will say that I did like the fact that the Emperor was not impartial and was ready to kick ass, even though he didn't really do much, but he did well. I'm like really torn about it. The execution for this film I felt was very poor, but the what is that thumbs down? Is that an agreeing thumbs down? Or
Execution was bad. Yes.
Okay,
I agree
cool.
with you.
The execution for this film was poor, but the changes that they've made were understandable and necessary, considering that they wanted to go that far from the original. With that being said, I like the first one better. I think that there's so much more of a clear character change and a necessity for Mulan to do what she did in the original. Whereas for this one, it was just, I saw my dad holding a sword and he was kind of wonky. And then she was like, okay, I'm going to go fight. We see that little bits of it in the dinner scene before that night that she goes to run off. But I don't know. It was just, there was, the intro scene, where she's riding a horse and then she goes into her house and she's like all happy and giddy. We never see her like that ever again in that film. Yeah. It was just a complete.
She was happy. She was happy when she fell from the roof and saved the chicken. She only became unhappy when she was forced to hide herself. She became unhappy.
That's not.
And then she didn't become happy again until she allowed herself to break free. I got it.
I agree with Natalia. I think Mulan in this film was a very flat character. There was no character development, no change, no shift. She was the same from beginning to end. She wanted to fight. She was a woman. She couldn't fight. And then she fought.
Could that be accredited to the acting?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't blame
Liu
Yifei. Okay, in the credits they have it as Yifei Liu, so I was just anyway.
Yeah, they change it.
I wouldn't blame her necessarily because I don't think she's done a lot of acting in the past. It is your job as a director to make sure you get a performance. If it was like that for the whole film, it was intentional. It was Nikki Caro's decision to say, be wooden. So you can't
See,
really
I
blame her.
Well, not
disagree.
Captain Marvel wouldn't.
I
I would
think
say
she
like she had
wouldn't.
emotion.
Captain
Oh, yeah.
Marvel wouldn't. She was Captain Marvel wouldn't.
Really?
They
Brie
were the
Larson did a
same.
little bit.
Yes.
I feel like Brie Larson was just a smidge, higher.
If I can make a comment about Captain Marvel, I think she
Yeah.
wanted to, when she went to the Air Force or wherever, to the military to ask the women how they would be portrayed on screen. They said, we don't want to be too boisterous, for example. We not too smiley. We want to be like the men. And I thought if you have that incorporated as an actor, you want to portray what they say, so military
Also-
men and women can say, oh well, that's my experience too.
Also, with
Yeah, but
Captain Marvel, there was the amnesia subplot, so she was searching for her personality throughout the first movie. So I feel like when we get to the second, she'll probably have a little bit more like personality. So I feel that's something.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were like, Mulan is Disney's Wonder Woman, but I don't agree. I think it's Disney's Captain Marvel. Both films were really disappointing. They were kind of made by committee. They were very, just the acting was wooden. They were very similar. Wonder Woman had a character arc. Wonder Woman had great action. Wonder Woman had an actress who can't really act. She doesn't have range, but she's good at what she does, kind of like Harrison Ford and most actors, to be fair. So I think it's more aligned with Captain Marvel.
Yousef,
and both those, yes?
You said that you think that this isn't Disney's Wonder Woman. You think it's Disney's Captain Marvel. Disney's Captain Marvel is Captain Marvel.
I know. But I just think like both those films have their fans, and that's fine. But both those films, if you look at them as films, are very weak in terms of how they were executed. I also think the CGI was awful. The wire work, first of all, the opening where she's chasing the chicken was horrible. Can we all agree? It was awful.
Oh, let the poor lass chase a chicken, man. She was fine.
She could chase a chicken, but the way they filmed it, the way they cut it, the way they visual effects it. So what?
Hang on, I want to bring up one last comment because I think we kind of all said our pieces. I forget who said. I think Natalia said this earlier about the fact that they didn't kind of show her physical transformation as much and the physicality. Yeah. Yes, that is true, and I think that is something that the animation did do very well. I do think, though, that in the 22 years since the animated movie, with characters like Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust in the Mission Impossible movies.
Thank you.
I feel like we have gotten to a point where it's not as uncommon to see very powerful, like action feminine characters. Because at that point, like the most we had was like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. If like that's probably like the biggest role that like a female got in like an action type of film, if my memory is serving me correctly. So I feel like their choice to kind of do the thing with like Gong Li and have it be more societal and cultural than physical, I think that may be just because of the time that we have had between the two Mulans. I'm not saying that it's better or that it was a right choice. I'm just saying I think that's more of how the film has aged a little bit more. Just my opinion.
And then before we go into our ratings and our final comments, Ben couldn't be here. But he did send some messages that I want to read just about his thoughts.
Don't read them out. They're trash. They're trash.
He said, it's streaming trash. Hated it. Poor Liu Yifei and Nikki Caro is now a mortal enemy of mine. He said, it was one of the most disappointing films I've ever seen. They take a lot of risks while simultaneously taking none. Score was weak. Comedy was actually absolutely awful. Liu Fei was 100. But everything around her failed miserably. Yousef, you better win this debate. I do be there in spirit. I wanted a soulful and epic drama. They gave me a sloppily cut, beautiful at times looking mess.
Can we all just agree that we knew for a fact as soon as Disney announced
Ben was going to hate it, yeah.
This was going to streaming,
that
was Ben's response.
Yes.
As soon as we found that this was happening, this movie could be 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Ben would find a problem with it because it's on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So I am not taking his comments seriously
So
Also, Rotten Tomatoes. I'm so sorry. I forgot to bring this up.
It went
This has
down.
80 whatever on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the same thing I believe that happened with Trolls World Tour when that movie first debuted on Rotten Tomatoes, where it got like a 90 or an 80. I think that if you look at the reviews, which I did, the critics that gave it an overwhelmingly positive review were the same critics that did not have access to Tenet. They were the same critics who did not have access to New Mutants. So they were just happy to have something that they could actually review and that they could push so that more movies would go to PVOD so that they can do their jobs and get paid and do that. So I think that's why it's overwhelmingly positive as opposed to a more fair review. I don't hate this film.
That's definitely a factor, I think, because
Yeah.
you, of course, Yousef, have seen Tenet probably like 700 times. And yet I'm like waiting for new content. So
Yeah.
I think that plays into something, but I also think, like, personally for me, I'm not going in with the biggest expectations for these Disney live action movies. I treat them as if I'm going to see like a show in like the Disney parks. Like, it's the thing I like, but it's like this different version. And so I feel like a lot of people, like, it's inoffensive. You put on Mulan, your family enjoys it, it's fine, it's fun.
Yeah.
And Tenet, meanwhile, is like, you know, people are comparing it to Inception, which is the Best Picture nominee. Like, I feel like there's more of an expectation. There's more of an expectation with Nolan than Mulan, and I feel like that also may contribute to the higher Rotten Tomato score. But so should we go into ratings now? Is there anything else? Have we said everything?
I just have one more thing. I will be nice, and I will throw Yousef and Natalia a bone here. The one part I did not like at all, didn't like how the cut from them just leaving the cat from like the conversation with Donnie Yen in the tent. I did not like how they went from that to the dead bodies.
Yeah.
I do remember the animation where they're singing A Girl Worth Fighting For, where obviously it's all happy and cheerful and nice, and then all of a sudden you've just got, boom, everyone's dead. They needed something there.
Mm-hmm.
They needed a scene of them walking together, talking while they walk, being lighthearted, so that them dead bodies then had an impact. It didn't have an impact.
Yeah.
Really quick, how would you rank this movie among the other Disney live action movies? Like, what's in its company? You don't have to rank them all together, but like,
I think I've got it in my top 3, I believe.
Okay. Same for me.
I have it.
It's better than
it
Aladdin.
at number.
Yes.
I put it at number 15, but I am actually gonna push it down to 16 because I forgot about One and Only Ivan. I think all of the other ones on top of it were they added something. They were very fun to watch. They were big movies. This one is more along the lines of Lady and the Tramp, Alice 2, and some of the smaller ones. But the fact that they advertised it as this big movie brought it down a little bit.
Hi. Yes. Hello. I don't have like a clear list because I'm not you guys.
Mhm.
It's low. It's not like all the way bottom of the barrel, but it's not. Yeah.
And you know what's number 1? Aladdin. Screw you, Liam.
Aladdin's number 11 for me. I even said Mary Poppins Returns is better than Aladdin. How do you feel about that, Yousef?
I like Mary Poppins Returns, so joke's on you.
Yeah, I've got it as number 3. I think Beauty and the Beast is better, and I think Cinderella's better. But
Cinderella.
yes, look
All right.
at me.
Kenneth Branagh?
I'm an
That says everything we need to know.
I'm an extremely effeminate gay man. Of course, Cinderella is in the top for me. It was like vomiting campness all over the screen. Kate Blanchett,
That's true.
just
I'm
wonderful.
I'm with him on that. I don't think Cinderella is like. I think it's like number 4 or 5 for me.
It's just so
like
pretty.
It's the bottom for me. Anyway,
It's very
not
pretty.
Here. Let's not have a Kenneth Branagh debate. Let's
go into ratings because we can talk about this all day. But
Wait. One more thing before we go into ratings. I was going to say something that Liam was talking about, but now I forgot it. Oh my God.
Yen?
No. Oh, okay. It was about the camaraderie. I felt like there was like very little sense of camaraderie between everyone there. Like, I guess we got some names, but they didn't say it loud enough for me to like put
I don't
names to
remember.
faces.
Oh no, I really liked Cricket. Oh, he was so
Who
cute.
was that?
Cricket was like the chubby one.
Oh yeah, he was
The
That
one
was
cute,
like
but I
dead
can't.
sweet.
didn't.
And I
But
was
I
just like,
can't remember their
"Aw."
names. Like we got scenes with them, but we didn't get any like scenes of them like I don't know. It was just I didn't feel
Well,
like
you
there
got
was
like
that
the
much
ones
sense of
in the you got the
camaraderie.
ones in the when they were in the sleeping quarters of them messing about and stealing each other's like drawings
It
of their
still just felt like
matches.
it
You're
was
and-
reaching,
Wait,
Liam.
Can you-
I'm not reaching.
Hang
Yeah,
on.
you are.
Hang on. Can you actually, guys? Can you name the supporting characters in Aladdin like this? Like
Dahlia.
not Dahlia. Like the characters who just walk in and have like 2 scenes. Like I don't want to say the.
Okay,
prince.
but okay. In this movie, you have Mulan, and that's it. I don't know Gong Li's character's name. I don't know Boricon. Hooray! I know 2 characters' names. Genie, Aladdin, Jasmine. You could have the
Yes,
same
The
argument. Those
Sultan,
characters.
Abu.
Yes,
Yeah.
but these were all characters that were in the original. I think Mulan.
So were
because-
these characters.
No, they were not.
No,
So
they
were these
weren't.
Yes, they
characters.
No, they weren't.
They could
They weren't.
just give them this. Okay, but they are representing characters that were in the original.
They
It's not
are,
my
but
fault. Nikki
they're
Carroll
different
wanted to change it. If she wanted to change it, fine, but you have to establish them in your viewers' minds. Dahlia was not in the original, and everybody
She
still
made
remembers
more
her.
of an
She was
impact
great.
than the
like,
others.
I
I'm
just
just
call
saying-
her the girl from Saturday Night Live. So
I'm gonna kill you.
did she?
But listen, I'm just saying,
I'd
like,
agree.
Black Panther has been on the mind because I rewatched it twice in the past week. Like, I
Yeah.
love that movie. I couldn't tell you the name of Angela Bassett's character the first time I watched it. I know it's Ramonda now, but
The mom.
knowing the names of the characters, sometimes like supporting characters, like it's not like I didn't know the name of the main characters. Like, there is a difference.
But when you only know the name of one character,
Well,
you're
you
doing
knew the
something
Emperor,
wrong.
You knew the Emperor.
The Emperor's name is Emperor.
That's his name.
You knew.
What do you mean?
the father's
He had
name.
an.
You knew the
He had
father.
a
I don't know the
title.
father's name.
Yes, you do. That's the name that Mulan says is her name.
Over and
in-
over
in the
again.
army.
Well, I don't remember. I just remember Mulan.
Hua Jun.
Boricon.
Hua
That's
Jun,
it.
yeah.
Boricon.
The witch. She was
Okay.
never given a name.
Let's go into ratings. Let's go into
Ratings.
ratings.
I would give it a fresh rating of probably like 7.8 out of 10.
Okay.
I would say 7.5.
Okay.
5.
Liam. A 5. Okay.
8.
I'd give it a 6.5. It gave me New Mutants vibes like a lot. It was very similar to that film in the way it was edited and presented, but it was slightly better just because it had a beginning, middle, and end. So that's why it gets 0.5 more than what I gave New Mutants. So 6.5.
So
I
our
wouldn't say
average-
5. That's a little harsh.
Viewers, it's fine. Ignore him. He smokes crack.
No, no.
He does not smoke crack.
Says the guy who's been smoking the whole review.
It's a vape. It's fine.
Okay, still.
Our average rating for the council is a 6.96 for Mulan, so just shy of 7. Good thing Ben wasn't here, or it would probably be like a 2 average rating.
Yep.
But again,
Yes.
all that we needed. I mean, there were a lot of shots of skies in the movie. You know, there's a lot of beautiful skies.
And it was
Maybe-
very beautiful. We're not doxing the film because it was
No,
ugly, because it fucking
I'm
wasn't.
saying maybe that ticked off Ben too, because you know how much he hates Sky, and so
Ah!
and Sky. I wonder how it ranks. Like Nikki Caro, Disney Plus Sky. Like, how does his mortal enemies work?
Yeah.
You know?
I need
I
a
will-
list.
Yeah, I will say, I just want to bring this out because I know some people are gonna. I don't hate this film because it's not in theaters. I'm not pro theaters right now because of the things I told you guys, the horrible things I heard, and the stupid SpongeBob masks, and the fact that this movie's really small. So screw theaters, Disney Plus, that's fine. But I don't think as a viewer it's worth the $35 set.
I'm fully invested.
Got it.
You should spend the money. It's worth it.
I
I
think
think-
you can just wait till December. Like, don't not watch it. Just wait.
I think it
Nah,
depends
watch it.
how many people are watching. Like I share my Disney Plus account with 2 other people. They're both
Mhm.
watching it. I'm gonna watch. I watched it last night. I'm gonna watch it with my grandmother
Yeah.
next week. That's that's 5 tickets. Like $30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's a good value. I'll give you that. Like totally. And I could see this business model working for Disney going forward. I think for this particular film, is it worth the $30 no matter if it's just you or if it's 10 other people? No, I think as a family, you can wait until December. You got other things to do than to rush and see this movie right away.
I feel like the promotion did not help its case.
No.
Because it was
I agree.
like really overly hyped. And I was like, this is
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, if they would have said, "This is not New Mutants. This is One and Only Ivan. This is Christopher Robin," I think all of our reactions would be different. I think all of our reactions would be very positive, let's say, because you're going in with that expectation. But when your predecessors are Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, that all made $1 billion, you're like,
Alice Through the Looking Glass.
I think this was better than
$1 hit.
Aladdin.
Alice Through the Looking Glass had more spectacle than this. It was a shitty movie, but it was still more.
Wash your mouth
It
out
had
with
more
soap.
visuals.
All right, before Liam and Yousef rival the rivalry between Yousef and Ben, thank you all for watching and listening today to our Mulan review. We want to thank Sohail for joining us. We hope you enjoyed reviewing this film and getting to be in the middle of a Yousef debate. It's quite an honor to do so. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and check us out with new episodes coming soon. We'll have Ben back hopefully next week, and we'll try to make sure that he doesn't just go on a diatribe against Mulan. Thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Oh, hey, thanks for watching. And remember, full episodes are available wherever you get your podcasts.
With new episodes Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, links in the description box.
And be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to stay caught up to date with the Council.
Boys, I'm excited.